Welcome to this fourth Modern Arnis Roundtable, and we welcome you here to this discussion round. My name is Datu Shishir. I'm a Grandmaster 10th degree in Modern Arnis, and if you want to know more about me, look at the first roundtable because this roundtable is not about me. We've got a great bunch of people here, really spectacular masters and grandmasters, and we start off. We have Grandmaster Kelly Warden. We've got Grandmaster Tom Bolden. We've got Grandmaster and Datu Shishir and Ocala. We've got Grandmaster Doug Pierre. And of course, we have Master of Tapi Roland Rivera here. I think we're going to have a very nice and good session where we'll have good information about modern Arnis and about the professor, and that's what we're here for. So may you just introduce yourself? We start with Kelly.
Hey. All right. Thank you, Dieter. I appreciate it. Welcome my comrades in arms there. And my little pit bull, he's barking at the cat. Hopefully that doesn't come over too loud. Anyway, Kelly Warden, Tacoma, Washington, been involved in martial arts pretty much all my life, starting with boxing back when I was 8 years old. Modern Arnis, I started out with Kui Broca actually in combat Arnis, Datu Dieter's Arnis teacher at that point in time. Kui was one of Ernesto's senior students at that point in history. Interesting guy. I really only wanted the Arnis, and he made me do the Shotokan just to get to the Arnis. So it was interesting. And then through that connection, I was able to appreciate really what Arnis did, and happened to come into a seminar in Tacoma at a PKA kickboxing event, and Ramy was a featured instructor during the daytime. And I was like, wow, so much difference between the combat Arnis and the modern Arnis. But Ramy liked it because it was a foundation. You know, he's like, oh, that's like my family's foundation art. So very structured, very regimented, not necessarily typical of how I train. I'm more a spontaneous, improvised guy. At that point in time, I was doing a format called Renegade JKD, or we called it Poor Boy JKD, because we weren't buying into what was happening in LA. We were just blending. It's just an open gym, and there was practitioners from everywhere. Actually, that gym was Sugar Ray Seals when Seals was still fighting pro. He had just bought Hagler, and shortly after that, I was introduced to him, and come to find out, we were both Tacoma boys, and he's like, hey, if you want to use my gym, you can do it in the evening because we do all our training in the daytime. So that's how I got into running a martial arts school, and Ramy really liked that. He was ecstatic that I was right here in the Northwest with the Bangor military base, naval base, Fort Lewis, and then the McCord Air Force Base. So I was teaching Air Force. I was teaching Navy. They weren't SEALs. They were just sailors, I believe. And then I was blessed to get integrated into the Special Forces community. And anyway, there's a lot to say about modern Arnis and how well that blended to just about all of the military units that I was fortunate enough to teach and train. And I still just teach privately here today, and I make knives. So, but Ramy was a great innovator and a motivator to get me to follow the military and do what I could for the soldiers. So there you go.
Okay, great. Thanks for this introduction, Kelly. So we'll come to your stories with him a little later. So now we move to Grandmaster Tom Bolden. Hello, sir. Glad to have you here. Tell us about you.
Okay, glad to be here. I guess I'll just kind of go back to how I got interested in martial art. Way back, I was when I was a kid, I was interested in wrestling. That was long before there was any kind of recorded media. They had at that time, a lot of you might remember those. They had the only thing that was around was the Bruce Tegner books, and Bruce was a master of everything.
Right.
And I used to see him in the back of the magazine, so I ordered a few of his books, and he had karate and different stuff. But we always wrestled, and I wasn't a large kid, but I got pretty good at it. And at that time, we didn't have coaches or anything, but we wrestled a lot and a lot of practice. So we developed our own style, something we call sandlot style, because where I went to school, it was like a big yard, like beach sand, and you could wrestle on it and you could throw each other and you didn't get hurt. So we would find places where you could throw each other and wrestle, and we call that the beach, the sandlot style. But then later on, I went into the Marine Corps, and that's where I really got interested in, introduced to, I guess you would call formal martial art and the Marine Corps hand-to-hand combat. And one of the things I learned this later on, in the Marine Corps hand-to-hand combat, we did what we call rifle and bayonet fighting. And as I looked at it later on, I realized that the rifle and bayonet fighting, and I'd studied, had come directly from Eskrima. It was taught to military troops in the Philippines during the World Wars by the Filipino scouts. And it was based a lot on the figure eight and cinco terras. So that was a good learning point. And then I went from there to Camp Lejeune, and as I said, always been interested in martial arts. I studied Shorin-ryu karate for a while. But then I went to Hawaii. And this is where I first got introduced to Filipino martial arts, and I also studied Kempo. And I was there for almost 3 years. And I came back and I went to college and I taught martial arts there. Then I started to work as an engineer for IBM. And this is where, and when I came back from Hawaii, I was interested in this Kempo and this Eskrima stuff, but I couldn't find it anywhere, especially on the East Coast. I couldn't find it anywhere. So I looked and I finally forgot about it. And then as I was working at IBM, as I said, I was looking in the back of Black Belt magazine one day, and I saw this ad. It says, Grandmaster Arnis is doing a seminar down in Pennsylvania. And I'm like, wow, this is the stuff I learned in Hawaii. I got to go to that. So I had set aside some time, and I went down to Pennsylvania. And this is when I first met Professor Pracis. And he was an amazing guy. I remember when I first saw him. I went down on a Sunday, and I saw him in the dorm where we were staying. I didn't know, I'd seen his picture, didn't know him. And he was walking down the hallway in the dorm, and he was walking my way. He says, "Hi, how you doing?" And I'm like, I don't know this guy. So I'm looking behind me, trying to figure out who he's talking to. So he's getting closer and closer to me, and he's saying, "Hi, how you?" And I'm still wondering, who is this guy talking to? And by the time he got to me, he's reaching out his hand and he's shaking my hand. And it was just amazing that this guy had heard so much about just how nice he was, and he was down to earth. So that was when I first met Professor Pracis. And then I kind of followed him from that point on. That was early 80s. For years, I trained with him. I went to all of his camps and the major camps, especially ones on the East Coast. And it's amazing from all of the other stuff that I studied. It's amazing how his influence gave me insights into these other martial arts I studied. and how to do the translations. And it's just been rewarding to have studied with him. So for the time being, that's the main thing. I met him, influence that I had with him, and I have benefited from that for the rest of my martial arts career. I've been doing this stuff about 62 years now, so kind of a long time. So I give all credit to Grandmaster Priestess.
Thank you, Tom. Very nice to hear this story.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's move to Datu Shishir Nukala, Grandmaster Nukala. We are lucky here to have the first Western Datu, which was the second with Kelly, and Shishir, you were the first Datu that Grandmaster Remy, who gave the title to Grandmaster Remy. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your story about Remy.
Thank you, thank you. You know, all this, my Datuhood and my with my I guess learning and knowing Grandmaster Remy Prasas and Modern Arnis had basically changed my life. And now I feel like I can face the world. And as you know, I'm actually making a story of my life because it's very traumatic as well as very challenging, and it's very I guess enlightening. I made so many mistakes, and through professor's encouragement and his inspiration, I feel like I am I am cruising the world. So I met him. I was already a yogi. I'm probably one of the first yogi in America. I am acharya, yoga acharya. But prior to that, I'm already a martial artist. And dwindling into modern Arnis, as I started modern Arnis before I traveled to US in the 70s with his students here because he left already Philippines. And I was competing then in different competition in the West Coast, and I met him at the Fred King's tournament. By then, I thought I know already Arnis, and of course, after meeting him, I am totally awe with his knowledge. Until today, I'm still discovering myself. And, I basically adopted him as my guru, my father, my friend. He had changed me to who I am. And a little bit of advertising now. Yours truly has a new book, Man Behind the Shell. Man Behind the Shell is basically a story, my life story, from a boy in the Philippines to, jail in India as a political prisoner to a beggar monk in Calcutta to Hollywood, and then just going around in North America in every school and competing, and later on sharing, become a golf instructor at Ledbetter Academy in Florida. Aiming for Arnis to be in the Olympics, as you see my sports Arnis. And my biggest challenge right now is turning my ancestral land into an FMA community. A professor actually wants to retire here. I have a 250-hectare land that's like invaded by illegal miners. And, I am one of the victims. My family is a victim of corruption and violence. And I am facing that now here in Philippines to seek justice and to turn this ancestral land into the first FMA community, I guess, hopefully in the Philippines, if not for the world. So all these challenges are, I'm not going to be able to face this without courage, without his vision. So I feel that we all are touched by Grandmaster Remy Prasas in whatever way we can to spread. And obviously, that's what I feel now. I am quite lucky to be able to, I feel I have absorbed modernist in every part of my system. And I was able to utilize it in every facet of my life. And I am really grateful for that. And of course, to our community. Mabuhay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shishir. Very nice to hear your story. Next will be Grandmaster Doug Pierre.
Uh-oh.
Great to have you here. Now, let's hear.
Yes.
What's your story? How did you get into it?
Well, like all of you, I did the same journey in the martial arts. I studied boxing. I was real good at it. They wanted me to turn pro, but I was mesmerized by all the karate. These guys breaking wood, bricks, and I said, later for boxing, I want to learn that magic, So I started studying judo when I was in college, but I felt like it really didn't feed the aggression in me. Then I moved to from the South Bronx to the Lower East Side of Manhattan, which in America, these were the two meccas of martial arts. You had martial arts on the East Coast, where everybody was in the magazines, and then you had the West Coast. Then you had the East Coast martial artists. We weren't in the magazines, but we were like vicious fighters. So I lived in a neighborhood where there was nothing but martial arts. I'm stone's throw away from Chinatown. So you had every style of Chinese martial arts you could think of. They were packed on top of each other. They had underground fights, all of that. Peter Urban opened a karate school in Chinatown, which was unheard of. You know what I mean? So my neighborhood was like the mecca of like vicious martial arts. If you opened a school and you couldn't prove your lineage, or you had a fictitious instructor or something like, they would go in there and close your school down. I mean, just like you would see in the movies. They would come in there and say, oh, do you give free lessons? Do you think I could get a free lesson? And close you down. Tell all the students, get out. This school don't exist no more. That's how brutal it was. So, I did that martial arts, and then I got introduced to sticks. My karate instructor was very eclectic. He had karate in there. He had goju in there. He learned goju. He learned taekwondo, so we had to learn that. He started introducing us to sticks, and I was like fascinated by this thing because it was different than all of the traditional weapons that I was exposed to. So I asked him, what is this? He said, oh, this is karate sticks. I said, karate sticks? I went to every bookstore I could find looking for a book on karate sticks. The only book I found was the Joe. So I kept up these drills. It was the 12 strikes, a couple of Sinawalis, and I just loved the way it moved. Then in 1984, two of the guys in Remy's book, Rapogo and Arnold, had a seminar. That's when I met Eric Lee at that seminar. And it was a 2-week seminar in the Allegheny Mountains. That means every day was stick fighting. So I went to that, and that was in 84, and Remy had his seminar in 84. I think that was the one that Tom Bolden went to. And I thought it was going to be held in the city. And I said, I want to be in the country. It was in the Allegheny Mountains. It was at a abandoned camp, like a boys' camp. And I met Eric Lee there, and for the 2 days, I just got submersed in Martin Arnis. And these two guys are in his book, Martin Arnis. So they had Grandmaster Wheeler, Alan Wheeler from the Ishiru system. He was there. He used to say to me, man, don't you want to go into town with everybody else? He would see me there all day, all night, practicing because I really loved it. And then about 2 years later, or 3 years later, I met Remy. I went to his seminar, and there weren't a lot of people there. And he didn't want to come down. So I said to, I keep forgetting his name. You know, that's age. Age is coming in, it's creeping in. But the one who hosted it was his fourth degree. You all know him. And I said to him, where's Remy? He says, oh, Remy don't want to come down because there's not a lot of people here. I told him, yeah, you better tell Remy come down here before I come and go and get him. Because I said, Remy came to the seminar. That's when I met him for the first time. And then after that, I just followed him everywhere that he went. And then our relationship got real personal when I had my first seminar. He kind of had a relationship with my sister-in-law. So when he wasn't doing seminars, he would be in Queens at our house. So, you know, I took full advantage of that. I would go there and wake him up, and I got pictures of me while he's in the bed, me sitting next to the bed, telling him, show me how to do this, and what is this, and how does this work? So, you know, I had a very real personal relationship with him because of my sister-in-law. And then I traveled with him, and I learned a lot of my forms while we were in the laundromat washing clothes. Traveled with him up to Zengi. Where's Zengi? I think he's in Albany, up there where I forget where, see, mental block. But you know, I spent a lot of time with him. I went to a couple of seminars, and then I started thinking, because I'm one of those guys that will look at a technique and then wondering if it's realistic and if it would work. It's got to work against me, because I was a rough judo practitioner. My instructor in judo, he would tell people, oh, you want to come into the school and work out on the mat with Doug? And they would look at me and go, I ain't getting on the mat with that crazy dude. So I was always into like the fighting aspect. So I wanted to get into fighting. And in '89, I competed in my first full contact stick fighting tournament. And back then it was like 4 rounds, 2 minutes per round. And I got into the tournament on a dare. And I lost that match by a point, but I didn't know what it was. I thought I could wait and watch, see how full contact was, and then fight in it. But I'm representing Martin Arnis. So, and you know, I'm fighting mostly Doce Padas people. This is their venue. And it was my first time fighting in there. And they told me it was like World War III. I didn't know what it was like. I came from a martial arts background. I was trying to kill that kid. he was half my age. He was like 40 pounds more than me. And it was like intense. And then, you know, I told, you know, the professor that what I wanted to do. I wanted to compete in full contact to represent him. So in '92, when I was going for my first tournament, the professor said, no, don't go into the tournament. They're going to take advantage of you, this, that, and the other. And I was like, you know, Professor, I got to do this. Because if I don't do this, it's not real to me. And it's one thing, if we study stick fighting, we could beat up a lot of people, a lot of karate people. Not so much if we're facing somebody who's just as skilled as we are. And I wanted that experience and exposure. And the professor tried to talk me out of it. But I went anyway, and that's when I got my first two world champions. And he was kind of happy, but he wasn't. And I kept promoting him. And since then, I traveled with him, shared rooms with him. We discussed the Bible. I would always say to him, Professor, I know there's more to your system than these forms and this and that. He said, no, Doug, you got it all. No, I know there's more. Teachers don't teach all their students everything. I would be like a nudge to him, you know what I mean? Then I went to the Philippines and I met his brother because they were having beef. And I was trying to squash that beef between the two of them. And then I found out why the beef existed. And, I trained with Ernesto for a while, got very sick training in this dojo in the middle of a storm. And then I told the professor, while I'm in the Philippines, who should I go see? He said, go see Maranga and go see Illustrissimo. He said, those two guys, if you really want to know, go to those two guys. So when I went to the Philippines, first thing in the morning, I didn't even get no sleep. I got up so early, went to Rizal Park and met Tatang Illustrissimo and trained with him for like 3 weeks every day in the day. And then at night, I would train with other grandmasters. Then when I went to Cebu to train with Maranga, found out that he had passed away and he left the system to his son. So I was all over Cebu trying to find his son. I wanted to complete that circle that Remy gave me advice on where to go and who to see. So I didn't get a chance to see him, but as time went on, and I had been to the Philippines like 6, 7 times, I did get a chance to meet him, train with him. I trained with all of these grandmasters, and they all tried to make me their student, their representative. But they knew that I was loyal to Remy. Remy was my teacher. I wasn't going to hop on this guy's bandwagon, guy's bandwagon. I think Martin Arnis prepared me for everyone's system because Remy kind of covered basically what everybody was doing,
Okay.
And as Kelly knows, I was there as a pallbearer with him when Remy passed away and to bury him. And then there was all this controversy on whether he should stay in Canada or go back to the Philippines. And there was all of this rigmarole, and I was going to accompany his casket back to the Philippines. Now, because I had met so many people in the Philippines and fought so many people in the Philippines, they all knew me. So I would get telephone calls from the Philippines because, what's his name? He was promoted to Grandmaster when Remy got sick and all of these guys. He had an electrical shock. I forget his name. Y'all know who he is. He was promoted to a Grandmaster, and he was supposed to go with me to the Philippines to accompany Remy's casket. So, and that was just before 9/11. Just before 9/11. As a matter of fact, when I said, when you guys decide what you're going to do, I'll accompany Remy's casket back to the Philippines. When y'all make up your mind, because Yvette and Remy's wife were in this thing about where he was going to be buried. So 9/11 took place.
There was some interesting things that were happening there. Chuck Goss was there, and that was the first time I met him too.
Ken Smith was there.
I know Dieter Dieter had talked about it, and and Shishir had rearranged or organized the funeral back in the Philippines as well. So.
Oh wow! Thank you, there,
Good stuff. Yeah, good stuff there, Doug.
Yeah, so I mean, Kelly brought the sword and we put it in the coffin. Okay. So it could be buried with him, with Remy. And
okay. Thanks, Doug.
And then I got a telephone call from the Philippines. Several of them. They kept saying, "Who's this guy who's calling himself a grandmaster of modern Arnis?" They say, "We know you, but who's this guy? What is his name again? I can't forget his name. He's part of that group with Ken Smith and all of them."
He ain't part of that group. He went on his own. You're talking about Jeffrey.
Oh,
Jeff Delaney.
Yeah, Jeff Delaney, right. So Jeff Delaney was promoted to a Grand Master, and I understand why Remy did that. Because he wanted to give him rank to cover his seminar commitments. Right?
Well, Chuck would probably be one of the insightful guys there. Everybody got promoted to 5th degree, at that point in time, because Remy never thought he was going to pass away.
Exactly.
But I don't know. I mean, I think as in depth as we could go in history, I think we need to do some individual interviews. You've got a lot of time and information there that a lot of people haven't heard. I think we're only doing an hour though. So I don't want
I got stories.
I know, Doug. I know we all do. I know Shishir's limited on time, and so am I a little bit. But
I've got to go to work yet too. So.
I know that you have a lot of more stories, but I think it's time now to move to Chuck. Grandmaster Chuck.
Okay, let's move on. Because I get long-winded. I apologize.
Oh yeah, we can all talk for hours. We know that. But we have some more people we want to cover, right? Chuck.
Okay.
Yeah, my name's Chuck Goss. I started martial arts when I was a kid. My uncle was a police officer, taught at the police academy, and I was 6 years old or so and started going to the judo club to the kids' classes. And then, typical kid, I in and out of martial arts. I played baseball and stuff. Well, then I got to college. I started judo again. Went through the police academy myself. And when I got out, it just didn't feel like things were, I'm looking for better. I'm seeing guys getting hurt trying to make arrests. I'm seeing guys getting attacked and they're not being able to defend themselves. So I started looking. I started taking some traditional style karate. I think I started with Tung Sudo. Well, the instructor there, super open-minded guy, says, we should go look in the Black Belt magazine, see what we could find, So we found a seminar, and it was Grandmaster Wally J. and Professor. So I says, well, we could go. I said, but I don't know who Professor is. I said, but Wally J., he's a judo guy, so that'll, whatever he teaches, probably click, So we drive out to Joliet in the middle of the winter, snowstorm, and we get there. And I'll never forget it, walk out on the floor there, and there's 2 tables, and the lady says, it'll be $85 or whatever. So I pay her, and she goes, okay, you're on this side. And I go, well, I want to see Wally J. She goes, no, you're going to see Professor Priestess first. I go, well, I'm not interested. She goes, you'll get to see both of them. Don't worry. Okay. So I go out there. So I go on this side of the gym. It's a big gym. So I'm standing there, and way down at the other end of the gym, this gentleman walks in, and everybody's talking to him, and he sees me, and he comes walking out, and I'm not really with anybody there except the guy that I came with, and I don't know anybody. A lot of the people there knew everybody, they knew each other. So anyway, Professor comes walking up. Hello, how are you? Like with Tom, it was super friendly. And so I said, oh, hi, I'm Chuck. I don't know who he is. He goes, oh, why are you here? I said, oh, I'd like to learn some martial arts. He said, really? Okay. So he calls some dude over and just starts slamming him all over the floor. And I'm like, holy crap. So he looks at me and says, well, what do you think? So, Okay. He goes, what do you mean, okay? I said, well, it's not being disrespectful. I said, but that's your guy. He's gonna take a break for. That's what you think? I said, well, not really, but maybe. He goes, well, you'll punch me then. Uh, So I throw a punch like this. What are you sick? Punch me. So I let it rip, and I'm upside down on my head. Bong. I said, oh, okay, let's see how this goes. So I get up and he says, what do you think? I said, maybe. He goes, okay, one more. So I figure, well, okay. So I'll throw 2 punches then, being the wise guy I am. So I throw 2 and he ties me up in a pretzel, body slams me, picks me back up, throws me down again. Now I don't know which way's up. I get up and he says, what do you think? I said, I'm here for a while. I like that. That's pretty good. So from there, I started doing a couple seminars here and there. And the more I saw, the more I was like, this guy's got everything I'm looking for with, because of the weapons, the empty hand against the weapon, everything, and the ground fighting, so I looked all over. I live just outside of Detroit. I looked all over and I couldn't find really anybody that was in the yellow pages teaching stick fighting or modern Arnis or any FMA for that matter. So I talked to my wife. I said, listen, I said, I got to do better than this. I said, I'm teaching at the police academy now, and we're getting 60, 80 people a class, 5 classes a year. That's a lot of people that are depending on you to teach them how to do what needs to be done. I said, I need to start following him more, and he tells me, well, you'll come to the camp, and I will teach you. So I debated about going to Michigan camp. I had been to 2 or 3 seminars by then, and I'm thinking, God, if somebody breaks my arm or something and I'm without work and no pay, what am I going to do? I got 3 little kids, blah, 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 So I go, what a great time. He walks in, there's 100 people there. Oh my God, Chuck, what are you doing? He remembers my name. And I'm like, I've been in classes with 20 people and the instructor didn't know your name. You know what I mean? So he was very personable. So after I went to camp, he tells me, yeah. After I went to camp, he tells me, hey, look, you want to see me? I'm in Black Belt Magazine. You just check there. So I started checking. So I made a rule to start that within 8-hour drive, I would go see him. So every month I started going to see him. Well, of course, that rabbit hole got so deep that I was like, nah, it's got to be more. So then, I talked to my wife. We maxed out 3 credit cards, took out a loan, took part of my retirement. And I started following him every week that I could go. So, at work, you'd have to work overtime in order to get time off. Because if not, you just piss through your time off and then you got no way of going anywhere. You got no days off, or you go without pay. So I would work the overtime so I could go on the weekends and travel. So minimum of 2 weeks, 2 weekends a month, I would go wherever he was going. I'd get on a plane or I'd get in the car, depending on where he was at, and I'd start following him around. Well, didn't take long for me to show up all the time and him really start taking a shine and start teaching me. Well, then, he invited me to go to a couple places and we started, I started going as much as I could then. I really started pouring in. And then he started, well, why don't you come over, go Tuesday. Like if we're going to Texas, camp was Thursday or Friday, he'd say, you'll come Tuesday and we'll practice. So Tuesday I'd get there and we'd practice teeny bit Tuesday, depending on where he came from with his jet lag and that. And then Wednesday we train in the morning and then in the afternoon, and then of course there was, the invite to Black Belt Magazine, do the videos with him there. And then of course, Victoria, and I, developed an extreme close and personal relationship with him. I mean, many times over, you are my son. Don't forget that, I will take care of you, and through the years, that was just an incredible journey. You know what I mean? You get to be close to someone that has so much persona and knowledge. It just bigger than a life human being. You know what I mean? A bigger than life human being. And that to me was just so strong. We go in a restaurant, you hear, all the noise that's going on, people talking and blah, blah, blah. He just had that aura about him. He walked in and you get that split-second silence and everybody would look, pause, and then back to it. He just had that about him, and he was a powerful, powerful person. And being able to be close to someone like that, you could never write a script like that and say, oh, this was this was the journey, you know what I mean? You can't do that, you know, and unfortunately there was a lot of BS that went on. And I've just moved way, way forward past it. You know, like Kelly said, there's a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes and stuff. And I really don't even really care to even talk about a lot of it, because a lot of it was BS that was made up. A lot of it was people trying to manipulate stuff, lies. And all you here, except Mr. Bolden, I don't know Mr. Bolden, but all of you know who I am as far as I'm a true person. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sell you a bullshit sandwich. And that my heart was dedicated to Professor.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
you
how I
know,
met.
Chuck,
Okay.
yeah, not to interrupt you, Chuck, but I think the beauty of modern Arnis and what the professor gave us is that it all shows on the floor, you know, and your art shows on the floor.
Thanks, brother.
So there's no question, and you know, your dedication, your time with him, it really does show, and you emulate modern Arnis much like he did. So
Thank you.
big kudos to you, brother.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks for your story, Chuck. That was intense, like your relationship to Remy. Right,
sure.
and we move on to Roland, Masutabi Roland Rivera.
Hey,
How
everybody.
are you?
Hello, everybody. Roland Rivera here down in North Carolina. Started in martial arts. Oh, you know, it's kind of thing. You know, I started in playing all sports growing up, but then when I got to college, I started really getting interested in martial arts. So I started in Wado-Ryu karate, did that for a few years, and then kind of fell into Aikido, and I just loved it. I loved it. I loved the movement. I loved the flow. But then when I got out of college, I ran across and I met Master David Nung, also here in Raleigh, and he introduced me to Tuhan Rick Ward, who introduced me to Grandmaster Presses, and that just changed my life. I mean, you know, once I got on the floor with him, it was flow personified. You know, you couldn't beat it. And like Chuck was saying, he was larger than life, dynamic personality on and off. And at that point, I started going to as many things that I could go to as well, up and down the coast, mostly on the East Coast, some down into Texas and to Michigan. But I really appreciated the time when he ended up having a place in North Carolina. So he would come and during his downtime, which was very little, he would come and teach a Wednesday night class in our school. And it was just fantastic just to see him command the floor. But my special memories of it were that the times when he didn't have to be that giant man, you know, when he got on the floor and he was larger than life and nobody questioned him. I spent a lot of time with him where we just went to see a movie or we went to go grab some dinner, and, you know, there would be little play, you know, a finger lock here and there, but most of the time it was just talking about family, and he was really more interested in me than he would let me ask about him. And that was just how he was. He was more about giving, and that I try to emulate in what I do. Whatever I learn, I give away. It's not mine because, like Professor said, it's yours, baby. You know, it's no longer his. And once you owned it, it became something for me to give away and to pass on to the next generation. But I'll keep it short and let's go on.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing.
Can I piggyback off of what Roland said about the professor's
just one moment.
concerns?
Just one moment. You
Yes.
can do it right after, because I think when we all would be on the mat, we would all do and move differently, and we all got it from Remy. So I would like to have your short stories about how he let you be yourself, how he let you develop your way of doing things, and how, yeah, how he was leading you, guiding you to get as good as you are now. Okay, Doug.
You, to piggyback off of what you just said, it's true, because he'd always tell people, "You got it, baby," even if they didn't have it. So
Right.
he would always be encouraging you. All right?
Oh, you could do that. Yes. I will
Yeah,
not.
you can do that. Oh, you got it. You got it, baby. I mean, I was like, no, he ain't. So, but here's an interesting story about that. I was going through a separation, and I was traveling with the professor, and the professor was trying to. I was in like this down mood, and the professor was trying to like encourage me not to be in such this depressed situation. So we met this woman, and unknown to me, he was setting me up for a relationship with this woman. So we were in this in this hotel room, and the three of us, and Remy tells me, "Oh, look, I'm going to go to the store. I'll be back." So he leaves me in the room with the woman, and all of a sudden, like 3 hours go by. So
It was a long walk.
what kind of store is this? So he comes back and he's like, "Oh," he watches that both of me and the lady, we're just having this conversation, nothing is happening between us. So when she leaves, he says, "Dougie, did anything happen between?" I said, "No." He said, I left that long so that you could have some of that." I said, "No, I didn't need it, Professor." But he was just looking out for me. You know what I mean? To make sure I wasn't depressed. You know? So yeah, he did look out for certain people, how they felt. So yeah,
So who
I
else?
remember that. I miss
Well,
him a lot.
well, how did he make Kelly? Like, what did he do that he let you be yourself and not trying to
Well,
press you in a certain system?
sure, sure. Well, that was kind of the deal. I came in from combat Arnis, so I was very rigid and structured. And but at the same time, I'm a natural spirit. So like sparring, my Arnis is very spontaneous. I feed off the Arnis, I feed off the energy. I think that was probably the greatest gift that Ramey gave, was everything was number one. It doesn't matter, you can make it fit. And you know, I great story. I came into the camp, the Olympia camp, and it was run by Fred King, Dan Anderson, and you know, I was kind of an outsider, not kind of, distinctly an outsider. But at the same time, you know, he embraced me and wanted me to, you know, improvise. Is that it? Of course, that's it. That'll make it happen. You can do that. And, you know, now let's do that, everybody. Let's do that. And I brought in the first silent fighter, my first training dummy. And I was over there beating this, basically a coat rack with some sticks on it. And I says, you know, when I don't have a training partner, I use this. And everybody was laughing. Everybody thought it was kind of a joke. And then Professor got over there and engaged it. Next thing you know, everybody else wanted to engage it. He was like, you need to make that. He goes, it's like Dante's It Sticks to Death when Roland's up in the mountains and the old man makes him the stick man. I said, that's exactly what I you know, that's where I got the idea of myself, you know. So so I said to him, I said, how come nobody's remembering the Palace and the empty hand or the stick? He goes, I'm very good. I teach them to forget. And that kind of pissed me off. I was like, what the hell does that mean? You know, I mean, in all honesty, he's hard to follow anyway.
Right.
We're kind of the first generation, you know, besides Riddell and different people in the Philippines, but for Westerners, we're the first generation. So we have to interpret what he means by chicken hand and, you know, and I always tried to make a joke of stuff like that. But I said, well, what do you mean by you teach them to forget? He goes, well, everybody thinks that the lesson I'm teaching them today is the lesson I want them to learn. I have to change the format in order to get them to progress because they're bound by what they learned the last time. And I can't teach them to progress or get that natural flow. So I thought that was, pretty bizarre when he said, I teach them to forget, and I thought, well, for one, that's really good marketing because you always have something new to teach, So anyway, he was quite the character. There's no doubt about that. But freedom of expression, that's really what Ramey brought to everybody's art, And me,
for sure.
me especially. I mean, it was actually I threw my sticks down because I was so bound by combat Arnis, and Dieter would attest to that. That if you stepped outside the disarm number 1 or disarm number 2, Cooey'd be pissed off at you. Whereas Ramey, you improvise because it was a different energy, and Ramey is be like, yeah, that's good. I like that. You do that. So it was the first art
Yes.
or first teacher that allowed me to be me. So that's probably saying a lot right there.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I think
more-
part of that is because Remy would always encourage people to make the art theirs. Because we don't all move the same. And
Oh,
he
yeah, for
understood
sure.
that.
No question about that.
Yeah,
No
he
question.
understood that.
More so than
I think
JKD, modern Arnis taught me how to flow.
Oh,
Yeah, and I teach my students that all the time. I tell them, none of you should look the same because you're not built the same.
right.
And what I got out of modern Arnis is you have to put your own personality, your own spin to it. And a lot of times people are inhibited with expressing themselves. But with modern Arnis, you don't have to be inhibited. You can just be you.
Well, I think
Because
that's a
it
big
works.
point. Right. But I think that's a big point of why Professor always kept saying, make it yours.
Yeah.
Make it yours, instead of, follow the cookie cutter program of it has to be exactly like this. Make it yours. Like for me, I was right-handed, working the street, I carried a gun on my right hip. So everything had to change because I'm not going to give my gun away. When I told him, he asked me, how come you keep turning this way? And I explained to him, he said, holy cow, we do not want you to get shot. Okay, we will change. Now you make this like this instead, and then make it yours. And it was about how to enter for a throw or a takedown. So, I mean, he took 6, 8 techniques and turned them into 50, 60 techniques by just allowing free flow and adaptation of what I needed to do for safety. That make it yours is just huge because so many times you're so restricted by it has to be this way. There's only one way to do it. Professor, no, of course you could do that. And that was huge for me because, coming from a small Tung Sudo school with, a huge pond extremely small pond with a very huge fish as a leader. It was all about what he said and how he had made you have to do it. Your foot wasn't this way. And when you got the professor, you must just do it, and make it yours. And as soon as that clicked, it took a while, but as soon as that clicked, man, did things change for me. When I got to the police academy, we were doing takedowns, and we'd have a 125-pound young lady and a 250-pound dude. And once she figured out how she could make it hers, she's able to take this dude down. That's huge. For me, at that particular time of my life, I was teaching people how to keep themselves from getting killed. That's huge. So being able to share that with other people to make them make the technique theirs instead of cookie cutter has to be just this way. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
That's what I meant with that he sort of let us be ourselves and
Right, right.
brought the best out of each of us, even though we are not the same, and that's the whole point of it. Tom, what's your point on that?
Well, the thing I always remember, he was about aesthetics too. If you remember, Professor, he would say, "You must make it beautiful." If you remember, he was about the aesthetic aspects of it too. And if you had done arts where there was aesthetic value there, he pushed that. For instance, I had studied Aikido. I think Roland had mentioned that. I also studied capoeira and a lot of other martial arts. He never tried to change me. It was like, "Oh, that is beautiful. You do it that way." So what you do, you would take what I did, and he embraced that. I would take his ideas and I would just integrate it into what I already knew. Also, you teach dance for a while. And I found that was very valuable, the whole thing of dance. And he said, "Oh, Tom, I used to dance." So he embraced it. And that was the thing about Professor. He always, in whatever you did, he would try to add to it and encourage you to do it that way and just add what he did or what he taught you to do it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember an examination that we had in 1996, I think, and we had 27 people going for black belt. There was one guy, he just came back from Indonesia, and he moved strangely to us, differently, and then we were not sure if he should pass or not, and we asked him, "Professor, what should we do? What should we do with him?" And he just said, "Give him his freedom," and that made click. Oh, okay. Yeah, and this is same things that you experienced, that he let them people find their way.
Yeah.
I think on that, one of the key things that he always told people that really blew my mind. He goes, "Now you're teaching me."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you know,
I didn't know
and
I
that
knew
was
that.
his ability.
Right.
His ability to watch the guys that were standing out in the crowd, and then adapt right into it. Wally J said the same thing. He said, Ramey can see a movement and adapt it right into his art within minutes. So he was
I have a
very
question.
innovative because he paid attention to what everybody else did.
Right. Right. Exactly. He was a
I
genius
have a
when it came to
question.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doug,
Yeah, I have a question. We know that the professor promoted everyone to make it your own art. The way you move, the way you would express it. But I've always wanted to
oops.
is doing modern Arnis, because now more and they were nowhere around when Remy was transversing this world like he was. So when a person says to me, "Oh yeah, I'm a modern Arnis practitioner," have any rank in modern Arnis? There's a certain curriculum that you must have acquired. If you're going to profess to be a modern Arnis practitioner, there's certain things you should know. And I'm wondering, how do you all feel about that?
Well, we in Germany, we do have a curriculum that is based on some of Ernesto stuff and mainly of Remy stuff. And what we do here, especially in the student degrees, if somebody doesn't know what to do, you can tell them, "Oh, you can do it your way," but he hasn't got a clue what to do and how to do it. So first they have to learn how to do body mechanics and
Right.
how to strike properly. But but later on, when you go to the black belts, we move from what's this technique more to look at that problem and how would you solve that problem, or look at that problem, use your skill, use your tools to solve the other problem, right? So when you look at our higher level modern Arnis people here that are 5th, 6th degree or higher, nobody moves like the other one.
Right. That's what I
Everybody
mean.
has
That's what I
found
mean.
his way of doing things.
Yeah.
And
Well-
I think you have to have a base to work
deviate
this
from.
individual stuff from, because you have to know how to throw a punch, you have to know how to stand, how to make distance, close distance, and so on. But once you've got the foundation, then just do what you need to do for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, we put together on professor's request when he was ill to put together a book of knowledge, and we made a curriculum. Well, all I did was I added what he taught me along the way to that curriculum, and I hold my guys to that. But when they get to black belt, their job is to be able to pass on and fix everything. So what we do is we have the underlying students, blue belt, green belt, brown belt, send videos, and they go through them. And then I ask them to critique, how would you fix this problem? How do you make this person make this his own, make it better so he can progress and grow? So it's a continual putting water and fertilizer on the plant type thing, instead of just, look at my stripes on my belt, I'm cool, or whatever the case may be. Not that there's anything wrong with progression, but my thing is if there's not accountability down the road from guys and they just want to move up a ladder of requirements, that's okay. But if you're going to take on the role of a higher ranking black belt, you need to be able to look at a problem like Professor did. Oh, you could do that, but do this with that, and that will help you, and then do this, and then do that. Professor was a genius when it came to that. When he taught me and Ken, when we were working together at a camp, I'm twice, 3 times his size and in height and body weight and everything. And he would tell me, no, you are too big to do this move like this. You have to make like this. Now, turn your body the way you need to move. And then he would tell Ken, because of your size, you have to enter differently because you won't reach him. So he was a genius being able to pick up on who needed what. And like Kelly said, he would adapt to something immediately. And that was what was so impressive to me, because and I'm nowhere near that, but what I'm trying to do is get my folks to start thinking that way so they can make people grow instead of, and I think the more that they grow, the more their students grow. You know what I mean?
Well, the question I asked was, how do you know a person is a modern Arnis practitioner? And for me, they must know his empty hand forms. He must know his stick forms. He must know the 12 strikes. He must know the base arms. That's for me. If you're a modern Arnis practitioner, it must be the information. You must know what polis is, rompida. You must know what those terms mean in order for me to determine, are you a modern Arnis practitioner? Did you get it from Remy, or did you get it from one of you guys?
Well,
You
interesting
understand?
enough. Yeah, interesting enough. Like when I went to Germany, Dieter took me around because, I got a little jet lag. He took me around to a couple schools before I taught my session. And I literally said to myself, God, these guys are really good at their structure, their basics, and the symmetry of how they've organized modern Arnis. I'm literally going to myself, what am I going to teach them? And as soon as I crossed hands, well, I go off of attachment. I go off of sensitivity. I go off of the art within your art. So that's the key thing. If you're modern Arnis, you can adapt to any system, whether you're going Paquita Tercia or Kabbalah Serrata.
You're right, because I've studied all of them.
Yeah,
You're right.
And you did
Jesse
great
Glover's
on that seminar.
non-classical Kung Fu. I integrated and blended so much that I'm no style, I'm no art, but Wally J said I'm one of the few that he met that teaches like Ramey, and so when I was in Germany, 200 people on the floor and improvising basically based off of, their curriculum and being able to adapt right there on the spot, and I think that's the key thing, that if you could see who's modern Arnis. Now, a lot of people don't do the Anyo. I do all the Anyos, but I focus on 1 or 2 or 3 Anyos and then extract it out and teach all Okinawan karate applications based on the karate people that I have that I influence around here. But modern Arnis is really based on the ability to flow, and very few other arts have that, I think. So I think to answer
Exactly.
your question,
Definitely.
if you can flow, we know that you're modern Arnis. And yeah, the bullshit walks when you're on the floor. If you ain't got the game, it shows.
I,
You know?
Amen.
I'm with
It's
you,
like,
baby.
it's
I'm
like
with you 110%. I'm with you.
modern
You
Arnis.
gotta prove that on the floor.
Yeah, modern Arnis is like it's like learning anything else. Like if you learn mathematics, for instance, there are a lot of tools that you learn to teach you basic principles. You know, once you learn the basic principles, you got it. You can apply the principles to anything. That's why we learn a lot of the different drills in modern Arnis to teach us basic principles. You don't need to do that, as Caleb was saying, to be modern Arnis. Once you understand those principles, once you know how to put them together, you got it. That's the
Right.
key to it.
Yeah. Right. I agree with
Yeah,
that.
you know the funny thing. I call myself now Arnis Yoga, Arnis Tai Chi,
Yeah.
Arnis Golf, Arnis Meditation.
Yeah. I remember when you were in Florida, Arnie's golf, remember?
I was teaching
Yeah,
those
but-
golfers how to do sawali.
Yeah. Remember at the hotel.
Banda.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this that we all found that the ability to flow and the ability to from Remy to get the best out of us and to let him that he could form us to the people we became through his guidance is I think a very nice closure of this round table. I think we heard some really amazing stories from you, and I'm sure it will not be the last one. And we will go more into detail and perhaps a little more specific in the topics that we want to cover, that we want to talk about. But it was great to hear all your backgrounds and all your stories with Remy, and in the end he taught us very similarly, but he let us go into different directions.
Yeah,
Because,
to do it the way
and
we want to do
that's
it.
fantastic, because many martial arts masters or grandmasters or style founders, they want carbon copies. They want people that move like him, so that it's
Like
a
McDonald's.
unified movement. And
Yeah,
that's,
like McDonald's
that's
burgers.
so different
Everything
in
looks the
modern.
same.
Hey,
Yeah.
Dieter, would it be okay if I just told a
I
quick
think
funny story?
functionality. Pardon, Chuck?
I said, would it be okay if I just told a quick funny story?
Sure.
Okay. So professor's been training us for 6-7 months. He's going to go to Victoria and make some video. So he says, okay, these are the dates. You need to get there Monday. We're going to practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to videotape Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But don't tell anyone. Roland knows where this is going. This is great. I said, okay, sir. He said, do not. Do you understand? You will be dead bull if you tell anyone. I said, okay. So I go home, and I've met Roland probably 3 times at this point. So I get a phone call, and he says, hey, this is Roland. Professor told me to call you and ask you about this video shoot. I said, I'm sorry, I don't know nothing about no video shoot. I got to go. Bye. And I hang up the phone. Well, he calls me back. He says, hey, Professor told me to call. I said, look, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't call me back. I'm upset because I know Professor's going to strangle me. So I hang up the phone. Phone rings again. I pick it up. I told you, Professor, what are you doing? Don't yell at me. I said, oh, crap. I said, Professor, what's the matter? He goes, did this guy call you? I said, yeah. I told you. I said, you told me not to tell anyone. And I said, he called, and I said, I have no idea. Oh, shit, that's right. Okay, you let him know when he calls that he can come. So Roland calls me back like 20 minutes later. I'm guessing Professor called him and said, yeah, go ahead, call him back. So Roland calls me back. So Roland gets all the information. We fly to, what was it, Seattle?
Seattle.
And then we took the ferry over. And we get off, and we all got our stick bags and, sticks, swords, knives, all this shit sticking out of it. And the custom guy, you guys got any weapons? Roland and I look at each other. No. Okay, go on. And we just walk through. This is pre 9/11, obviously, way before. So we get there. Poor Roland, you know, he says, professor says, make sure now that he knows this, and he names like 400 things, and we're like, okay, you know that? He just looks at us, and goes, are you crazy? I've never heard of any of that. So here we are. We're working out all night long in the hotel, and he's getting a Reader's Digest version of everything the professor wanted him to know. So then him and Ken are in the pool beating the snot at each other. It was hilarious. Poor Roland, he didn't know any of us, and he's trying to deal with me on the phone. Oh, he wants me to call you, and he wants me to come. I don't know what you're talking about. I hang up the phone. It was great.
I think one of the next roundtables should be with the topic, the humor of Remy Prasas.
Oh my God, yeah, we could have a ball with that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm absolutely sure people would love it. People would love it.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it was a pleasure to have had you here on this roundtable. We had a lot of really great stories, and it was an honor for me to share this this Zoom meeting together with you. And I'm sure people will love this when they see it on YouTube. Thank you for being part of it.
Thank you.
I hope we can make it another time, either in this constellation or in any other constellation. It was really, really great, and I think we got the spirit of Remy in our roundtable discussion, and I think that was exactly what we were looking for.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Peter. Good
Peter.
seeing everybody.
Good seeing you all.
Yeah, everybody take care of yourselves.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care.